When the earth starts to settle, God throws a stone at it. And believe me, he's winding up.
Alright. So, I think this one's going to go on YouTube as well. So, hi YouTube. So, I've been doing a lot of thinking today. Been listening to a lot of stuff. And I don't think I'm breaking new ground here, but I think I'm onto something, and I just kind of want to work it out in my head. I want to bounce it off you guys, see what you think. So I think the biggest problem we have in our society is weakness. Just straight up weakness. I believe that it stems from the way the generation after mine was raised. The generation after mine was raised, coddled by their parents and psychotherapists, and we started to do this. We can't have trauma. There can't be any trauma. We can't deal with trauma. My kids will not suffer trauma. There will be no trauma in my child's life, right? You got picked on when you were a kid. I always think I'm crooked. When you get picked on when you're a kid, maybe it's because I'm sitting like this. When you get picked on when you're a kid and you think, oh, my kid's never going to go through this. Man, I'll be much more proactive in my life. And we were fed this line of bullshit from people that thought that way early. And they wrote books about how to raise your kid. And, man, people of my generation, we read all those books. We really thought we were onto something. And so we had things like participation trophies. The bane of existence, participation trophies. What exactly is a participation trophy? It is a celebration of the fact you showed up. That's it. You're here. Here's an award for just being here. Imagine how warped that makes your perception of reality. Anti-bullying. Look, it is a fucked up world we live in now, wherein things do not end unless you put down your phone. But for a child, in an age where their peers are always on their phones, I need to always be on my phone. And like, I didn't have a cell phone until I was well into my 20s. And the technology was out to where I could have had it in my teens. I did have that type of technology when I was a teen. When I was like 16 driving, my parents got a cell phone for the car. I had a cell phone. It wasn't like mine. I couldn't give the number to anybody because I wasn't allowed. It was for emergencies, and it was always to be in my car. But I had a cell phone, you know what I mean? Like, but I never bought one for myself for the longest time. And then I think I was like 26, 27, and I got a cell phone. Like, people that I knew were like, dude, get a cell phone. I'm like, I have a phone. I'm paying for the internet. I'm paying for the phone line. It's a package deal. I'm getting a deal. I have a phone. Why do I need a cell phone? And then I got a cell phone. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Because I could play Breakout on my cell phone. That was the only reason. That's what hooked me. It's always video games with me. Always. Anyways, so nobody could be bullied, and we had to celebrate the fact that you exist. I mean, fuck me. Is it any wonder that that generation has raised the generation that is now wearing keffiyehs and saying, yeah, we need food? Because, I mean, I know we're doing a hunger strike, but, like, we're hungry. So we need food, and we want the university to give it to us because we paid for it. I mean, we're just talking about, like, basic humanitarian aid here. Like, this is the generation that was raised by the generation that got celebrated for showing up. Fuck me. Doesn't get better from here, just so you know. Like, the generation that's raised by the generation that was celebrated for showing up, like, so far, they're either, like, Chad bros or really fucking weird. Like, litter box in the classroom weird. Dude. And it doesn't get better from there. Like, alright, so my generation raised a generation that believes it's cool. You should just be happy I'm fucking here. That, like, that alone should be enough that you're like, let's have a party. Steve's here. Where's my trophy? Right here, Steve. Like, that's what they think reality should be like. They raised a generation that said, no, I want you to chop off my genitals and pull them inside out. Or yank them out for me. I need you to just alter me. Radically. Medically. Fucking now. Right? But sweet, you're 11. Yeah, I know. But you gotta understand, on TikTok, they said, I'm a girl. So, we gotta do this. We gotta get this done. Right? I need a mastectomy. Fuck, like... And so the generation that was celebrated for being there is like, alright, that's what you want. Cool. And so they're doing it. So now, they're going to raise a generation man, I can't even wrap my fucking mind around that. Because inevitably it's a dead end, isn't it? They're sterilizing those kids. But the kids who aren't sterilizing themselves, they kind of believe that they're cats. So what is the generation of children raised by people who believe they're cats gonna look like? I mean, other than the obvious, kittens. But seriously, folk, what is the generation of kittens gonna raise their kids to be like? Hopefully dogs. And be a lot more pleasant. Like, if people were raised to be and act like dogs, just be friendly all the time and just jump at people, hey! You know, like that, man, that would be a blast. I think that would be a fun generation. Let's have the generation of kittens, they'll raise puppies. Because they'll all want to rebel against their parents who made them kittens, and they'll all want to have puppies. Like, seriously, man. What are we doing? So, participation trophies and how dare you bully me? Like, when did we lose sight of the fact that our traumas make us who we are? It's what you suffer and how you suffer with it, right? Like, and also another thing, another major shift that has happened very recently when you take into account the last 10,000 years, right? There's always been some sort of religion backing something. And you look at the places where religion is really a driving force, and man, they're getting shit done to a degree. I mean, it's not good shit, but they're getting things done. Globalize the enchilada. So, God. Like, Queers for Palestine. So the generation of kids that were raised to be celebrated for being present, raised a generation that came up with Queers for Palestine. And what it is it's just weakness. Like, it's just weakness. We're breeding weakness into our children at an alarming rate. We're breeding so much weakness that it's the weakness itself is consuming the children that we're raising right now. And it's getting so bad that they are just they're losing an attachment with reality. Like, they're straight up losing the attachment to reality. It took 2 generations to just lose the attachment to reality. And I really do believe that it stems from a loss of attachment to religion. Like, all religions that are widely practiced, they all share some manner of basic themes. And the basic themes are sacrifice. It's just the application of the themes can vary widely. So, well, let's just kind of talk Judeo-Christian right now. That's kind of the one that I'm, I don't know, promoting most, I guess, because it just makes sense. Like, imagine it like this. This is something I've learned in my recent theological studies. What God wants is fairly simple, right? It's simple to say, not easy to do. God wants you to love Him most of all beings in creation, of all that there is. Love God most, right? You think, well, that's easy. I love you. There we go. But, like, it goes beyond that. Like, if you're married in the audience, you have some sort of girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, think about your love for that person. What would you do for them? How far would you go? Now, apply that to God, right? Wrap your head around this. The second thing that God wants is for you to love everybody else after Him. Everybody else, right? And then last, you get to love you. That's it. God just wants to set up a hierarchy of love for you. God, everybody else, you. Now, you think to yourself, that's ridiculous. Because there are people out there that are not lovable. It's like, yeah, I know, I understand. And there's where the difficulty comes. But wrap your mind around this. What if everybody in the world was living by that principle? I'm going to love God more than everybody else. And so, because God wants me to, and I want to love God more than everybody else, I'm going to love everybody else. And then I'll love me when I have time. If everybody lived that way, it'd be amazing. Right? And that's all he wants. He just wants for us to be perfect, but it's not going to happen. We make mistakes. We get frustrated. We get angry. We get mad. We yell at people, and we do horrible things, and we start wars, and we parachute into Bonnaroo and just slaughter everybody. These things happen in the world. And still, you're supposed to love everybody. After God, before you. Now it's getting tough, right? Now it's just getting real difficult. and you just, with social media, you just see so many hateable people. And they just seem to be getting their way. And it's like, why are these hateable people getting their way? And you have to remember, it's because they're bitching loudest. And they're doing things that they honed in the 90s with Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony and TV shows and Janet Jackson's tit, right? All these things happen. Chappelle's Show, oh, I can't have that. All these things. And you got 4-5% of the country that gives a fuck. And that 4 or 5% of the country prints off, due to wonderful technology, they print off 1,000 form letters. And they mail 1,000 form letters into the companies that own the companies that own the companies that ran the show or have the radio station or whatever, right? And all these letters say we're going to do a big old boycott because of this. And they go, holy shit, we could lose a lot of money. Fuck them. Right? Cancel the show. Do whatever. They've now got so many weak little people that are willing to jump on the bully bandwagon. Because remember, these people have never been bullied. They don't really know what it looks like. They know what it feels like, but they don't really know what it looks like from the perspective of, oh, I'm the bully. I've been bullied before when I was a kid. I was bullied. And I bullied people when I was a kid. I bullied one person one time, and I felt terrible about it, and it was stupid. And there it is. But nevertheless, it happened. Actually, no, I bullied 2 or 3 people a couple of times. I was a kid. I was a shithead. But I didn't enjoy it very much, and I didn't do it in high school or anything like that. You know what I mean? It was grade school shit. Anyways. So, but I've been bullied. I was bullied in high school and stuff. And usually I would just make fun of them and then steal their girlfriend. Because that was what I did in high school. That, you know what I mean? I made fun of people and I dated chicks. That. Dude. Alright, maybe I did. I mean, I always did it out of love. Because I did love the guy. What was his name? Anyways. Me. Alright, maybe I was kind of a shithead in high school too. So, all right, me and this one guy, Mike Skifstead, I remember him. Me and him, we, for whatever reason, it was him. Like, he got me on him. I don't know why he picked the target in particular. I was just in for the hilarity of it because it was funny to me. Like, I just thought it was hysterical. So Mike Skifstead, for some reason, was like, dude, I've got a great idea. And I was like, what? And he's like, we should run somebody for class president. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, we should run somebody for class president. Like, we should make posters. Because every year they would put up campaign posters all over the fucking school. And they were obnoxious and terrible. And he was like, we should run somebody for president. We'll make campaign posters for him. And we'll just tape them up. Now, mind you, all right, here's another part of it. I was in the show choir. Now, at the school I went to, being in the show choir was like your stereotypical football team scenario. You know what I mean? You think about like Varsity Blues, some shit like that, where you're on the football team, so the school just kind of revolves around you. That was what being in the show choir was like at my school, because our football team sucked, but the show choir was good. So, right? And they had like attained a level of legend status. We had 5,000 trophies. Like, they had so many trophies for the stupid show choir that they couldn't display them all at once. It was ridiculous. Like, anyways, so everything in the school revolved around the show choir, and I was in the show choir. And so we were not only very creative people, encouraged to be creative, because we were doing a lot of show choir stuff, we were doing a lot of our own choreography and picking songs and stuff like that. So we were very creative people. And we were at the school like all the time, because we'd get up in the morning and we'd go to school, and then we'd do classes, and then school would let out, and we would go from our last class of the day, not to a bus or to a car or home. We would go to the fucking choir room, and then we would practice till like 7 o'clock at night, and then I'd have to go home and do homework and shit. So we were always at the school. So we had nothing but time to go around the school and put up posters, right? So he's like, all right, I picked the target, Rob Nickus. And I'm like, who the fuck is Rob Nickus? Like, I'd never heard of the dude before. I'm like, I have no idea who this is. And he's like, he's someone I know from middle school. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, is he cool with this? And he's like, he's not going to know. And I'm like, what? He's like, I'm not going to tell him. And I'm like, why not? I'm like, is he a friend of yours at least? And he's like, he's a guy I know. And I'm like, so we're just picking some random dude and we're going to make posters running him for class president. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm in. So we would, go off at lunch break or whatever, or dinner break, from practice, and we would go to the library, and we would get National Geographic books, and we would just random pictures, and we would say, all right, this picture, what's the slogan? And that was how we did it. And we would make these posters, and then we would hang them up all over the school to run this random kid for class president. And we did it like 2 years in a row. And he thought it was hysterical. He's like at one point I ran into him and I was like, hey, I'm like, you're fucking him. And he's like, yeah, why are you guys doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, Mike thought it would be funny, and it's been funny. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty funny. He's like, I like the posters. He's like, I think some of them are very, very funny, but I don't know why you're doing this. And I'm like, well, imagine if you win. And he's like, I'm not running. Like, I haven't done any of the stuff that you have to do to run. Like, I'm not running. And I'm like, yeah, but imagine if you win. understand. Anyways, the one that I remember the most, we found a kid. We found what Mike at the time called gold. It was a kid that was like an Eskimo kid, and he was all bundled up in an Eskimo bundle, whatever it is you call those. And the slogan was, "Vote for Nickus. He's just out of the pupil stage." So, I mean, I dabbled a lot with some light bullying, you know, in high school. But it was all, like, for my part, it was always fun. Like, we did it to our friends. We TP'd, like, 6 or 7 people one year because it was funny for us. And they were friends of ours. And it was always, like, usually the thing of it was, we'd TP somebody the night before we were going to go hang out with them. Because we would want to go back to the scene of the crime and see how beautiful it looked in the sunlight, right? And then we would find out that the person that we TP'd can't come play with us. This is fucking high school. Like, we're seniors in high school. Whoever it is that we TP'd can't come out and hang out with us because they got to clean up all the TP in the yard. And we'd be like, oh, well, we'll help. And so we would then be cleaning up all the TP that we had just the night before thrown into their yard. And then we go fucking do what we planned to do that day. Like, it was always the stupidest shit. And one time we started TPing the wrong house, and this lady pulled up, and she was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And we're like, And then we're like, "Does so-and-so live here?" And she's like, "No, this is my grandparents' house." And I'm like, "We are so sorry." And we cleaned everything up. And we're like, "We are so sorry. We thought we were TPing this dude's house." And she goes, "Well, he lives over there." And we were like, "Okay, well, that. Thank you. You know, we are so sorry." You know, we got into the car. We fucking took off. Now imagine her. It's just some random girl who drives up into the parking lot, and there's 4 fucking 18-year-old high school kids TPing her grandparents' house. Like, this could go one of any 1,000 ways, none of them good. She rolled right that night. She got a crit. And so we got in the car and we drove, you know, around. We were just driving around the block. And we were like, "Well, she said he lives here." So we double checked it. We were like, yeah, it's here. We TP'd the shit out of him. And then we found out that he got grounded for like the weekend because we TP'd him. And so we TP'd him like 3 or 4 more times just to see how long we could keep him grounded. But, like, he was a friend of ours. He was in the show car with us. And it was cruel because his parents just kept grounding. Like, every time he would get TP'd, they would ground him. And we were like, what the fuck is happening? But we thought it was so funny. So, like I said, some light bullying, you know. Like, that wasn't my fault, though. That was his parents. They're weird people. But, anyways, like, that kind of shit, you know, I got bullied. This was a bad one too. My parents had just paid to have the front yard redone. So it was all brand new grass. And it was the first year that Dad was like, "Oh, we can finally mow it." And I'm like, "Oh, goody." You know, because I'm like, "Yeah, that means that I have to mow the lawn again." Fuck. So, like, it was after the first time I mowed it. And these girls, they shaving creamed Spice Girls in my parents' front yard and killed a bunch of the grass. And my dad was fucking pissed. Because of course it's my fault. Because this is obviously retaliation for some shit I did. And I believe it was retaliation for some shit that I did. So, you know, like, it goes all around. When it rains, it pours. And the rain falls on the just and unjust alike. And that kind of shit. Now, look. We also did raise a generation of fucking people that were, like, raping people with broomsticks and stuff like that. And killing each other. And they, like, we also did create some bullies. Like, some real fucking bullies. Weak people that have power. We raised an entire generation of weak people. You thought none of them were ever going to get any power? What do weak people with power become? Bullies. Dude, the President of the United States of America is being bullied right now. Like, he's an old man that should be well retired by now. And they're bullying him into doing and saying the dumbest fucking shit. We raised a generation of weak people that all became bullies when they got power. And those bullies have now cleared even more of a smooth path for their children who now just simply don't like reality, so why even acknowledge it exists? So the generation after them is either going to be really hooked on reality, and they're really going to learn a lot of lessons from their parents' generation, or they're going to grow even more detached from reality. And that's going to be not good. But hey, 1,000 years of darkness!